Abase. The dictator sought to abase his political opponents by spreading malicious rumors. Abet. She was accused of abetting the thief by providing him with an alibi. Abeyance. The project was put into abeyance until further funding could be secured. Abjure. After years of supporting the monarchy, he decided to abjure his allegiance and become a republican. Abstemious. Despite being surrounded by indulgence, she remained abstemious in her diet and lifestyle. Abut. Their properties abutted each other, with only a fence separating them. Abysmal. The team's performance was abysmal, resulting in a humiliating defeat. Accede. After much negotiation, the government finally acceded to the demands of the protesters. Accentuate. She wore a belt to accentuate her waist and highlight her figure. Accolade. Winning the Nobel Prize was the highest accolade of her career. Accord. The two nations signed a peace accord, ending years of hostility. Acme. His performance in the final exam was the acme of his academic achievements. Acquiesce. Reluctantly, she acquiesced to his request to borrow her car. Acrimony. Their divorce was marked by bitterness and acrimony, making it difficult for them to communicate. Actuate. The discovery of a new energy source could actuate significant changes in the world economy. Adage. A penny saved is a penny earned is an old adage that still holds true today. Adjure. The witness was adjured to tell the truth before taking the stand. Admonish. The teacher admonished the students for talking during the lecture. Adulation. The actor was overwhelmed by the adulation of his fans at the premiere. Adulterate. Some unscrupulous sellers adulterate olive oil with cheaper oils to increase profits. Adventitious. The discovery of the ancient manuscript was purely adventitious, found hidden in a forgotten corner of the library. Adverse. The adverse weather conditions forced the cancellation of the outdoor event. Advert. The advertisement for the new product was prominently displayed in the store window. Advocate. She dedicated her life to advocating for the rights of marginalized communities. Affable. Despite his wealth, he remained affable and approachable to everyone he met. Affect. The loss of her pet deeply affected her, leaving her feeling despondent. Afflict. The region was afflicted by a severe drought, causing widespread hardship. Aggrieve. He felt aggrieved by the unfair treatment he received from his employer. Aide. The president's chief aide was instrumental in shaping policy decisions. Alacrity. He accepted the challenge with alacrity, eager to prove himself. Alcove. She found a cozy alcove in the library where she could read undisturbed. Allay. The doctor's reassurances helped to allay her fears about the surgery. Allege. The prosecution alleged that the defendant had committed the crime. Amalgamate. The two companies decided to amalgamate to increase their market share. Ambrosia. The dessert was described as ambrosia, heavenly in taste and appearance. Amenable. He was amenable to compromise, willing to listen to others' viewpoints. Amicable. Despite their differences, they parted ways on amicable terms. Animus. There was a deep-seated animus between the rival factions, fueled by years of conflict. Anodyne. His soothing words acted as an anodyne, calming her anxieties. Anthropomorphic. The cartoon characters were anthropomorphic, displaying human-like traits and behaviors. Aphorism. Actions speak louder than words is a famous aphorism that holds timeless wisdom. Apocryphal. The story of his miraculous escape from the sinking ship was considered apocryphal by many. Apologist. He was an apologist for the controversial policy, defending it vehemently in public debates. Apostate. She was labeled an apostate by her former religious community. After renouncing her faith. Apotheosis. The ballet dancer's performance was the apotheosis of grace and skill. Apparent. The apparent simplicity of the solution belied its true complexity. Appeal. The charity's appeal for donations raised much-needed funds for the homeless. Appease. The government attempted to appease the protesters by promising reforms. Append. He decided to append a bibliography to his research paper to acknowledge his sources. Appoint. She was appointed as the new CEO of the company. Apposite. His remarks were apposite, adding clarity to the discussion. Approach. His cautious approach to investing ensured steady but safe returns. Appurtenance. The house came with various appurtenances, including a garden shed and a garage. Apropos. His comments were apropos to the current situation, shedding light on relevant issues. APT. She had an aptitude for mathematics, excelling in all her math classes. Aquiline. His aquiline nose gave him a distinguished appearance. Arbitrary. The decision seemed arbitrary, lacking any clear rationale. Arbitrate. They agreed to arbitrate their dispute rather than resorting to litigation. Archetype. The wise old mentor is a common archetype in literature and film. Aria. The soprano's aria moved the audience to tears. Armada. The naval armada set sail for distant shores, ready for battle. Arrogate. He arrogated to himself powers that were not rightfully his. Ascendancy. The new technology quickly gained ascendancy in the market, eclipsing older models. Ascertain. He conducted experiments to ascertain the truth of the hypothesis. Askance. She looked askance at his extravagant spending habits. Asperity. His asperity often alienated those around him, making it difficult to work with him. Aspersion. She cast aspersions on his character, spreading unfounded rumors. Assail. The enemy troops assailed the fortress from all sides. Assay. The scientist conducted an assay to determine the purity of the sample. Assent. She nodded her head in assent, agreeing to the proposal. Assert. He confidently asserted his innocence despite the evidence against him. Assiduous. With assiduous effort, she completed the project ahead of schedule. Astringent. The astringent taste of the medicine made it difficult to swallow. Asunder. The earthquake tore the building asunder, leaving it in ruins. Atavism. His violent outburst seemed like an atavism, a throwback to an earlier evolutionary stage. Attitude. Her positive attitude helped her overcome many obstacles in life. Attribute. She attributes her success to hard work and perseverance. Audacious. His audacious plan to climb Mount Everest captured the world's attention. Augury. The appearance of a shooting star was seen as an augury of good fortune. August. The August ceremony was attended by dignitaries from around the world. Auspices. The project was launched under the auspices of the United Nations. Austere. His austere lifestyle reflected his commitment to simplicity and frugality. Automate. The factory automated many of its processes to increase efficiency. Avarice. His avarice knew no bounds, leading him to pursue wealth at any cost. Aversion. She had a strong aversion to public speaking, preferring to avoid it whenever possible. Avocation. Photography was his avocation, providing a creative outlet outside of his regular job. Axiom. Actions speak louder than words is an axiom that holds true in many situations. Badinage. The friendly badinage between co-workers lightened the mood in the office. Baleful. The prophet's baleful warnings of impending doom unsettled the villagers. Banal. His conversation was filled with banal clichés and tired expressions. Bandy. They bandied insults back and forth, each trying to outdo the other. Bane. Pollution is the bane of modern society, causing widespread harm to the environment. Banter. The playful banter between friends added to the jovial atmosphere of the party. Bait. He bated his breath in anticipation of the final decision. Bauble. The necklace was an expensive bauble, adorned with precious gemstones. Beatific. Her beatific smile lit up the room, spreading joy to all who saw it. Beguile. The magician beguiled the audience with his sleight of hand tricks. Beleaguer. The besieged city was beleaguered by enemy forces for months. Belie. His calm demeanor belied the turmoil raging within him. Bemuse. She was bemused by the strange antics of her cat. Bemused. He looked bemused as he tried to make sense of the confusing instructions. Benighted. The benighted village lacked access to basic education and healthcare. Bent. Despite his good intentions, he had a bent for getting into trouble. Bequeath. He decided to bequeath his entire estate to charity upon his death. Besiege. She fell to her knees to beseech him for forgiveness. Besiege. The army besieged the castle, cutting off all supply routes. Bestow. The king decided to bestow knighthood upon the brave warrior. Betoken. The dark clouds betokened an approaching storm. Betrothed. The betrothed couple exchanged rings as a symbol of their commitment. Bilious. His bilious remarks offended everyone at the dinner party. Blanche. The news of her illness caused her to blanch with fear. Bland. The food was bland and tasteless, lacking any seasoning. Blatant. His blatant disregard for the rules angered his teammates. Blighted. The blighted crops were a result of the prolonged drought. Bluster. His bluster concealed his insecurities, masking his true feelings. Boast. His constant boasts about his achievements annoyed his co-workers. Bolt. He made a bolt for the exit as soon as he heard the alarm. Bouillon. She sipped the hot bouillon to warm herself up on a cold winter's day. Brawn. His brawn was matched only by his bravery on the battlefield. Brooch. She fastened the brooch to her dress as a finishing touch to her outfit. Brook. He refused to brook any criticism of his work, insisting it was flawless. Bucolic. The bucolic countryside was a peaceful retreat from the hustle and bustle of city life. Bullion. The pirate's treasure chest was filled with gold bullion and precious jewels. Bulwark. The fortress served as a bulwark against invading armies. Burgeon. The company's profits continued to burgeon year after year. Burnish. He spent hours burnishing the antique silverware until it gleamed. Buxom. The actress had a buxom figure that turned heads wherever she went. Cabal. The political cabal plotted to overthrow the government in secret. Cadaverous. His cadaverous appearance frightened the children at the Halloween party. Cajole. She tried to cajole him into coming to the party with promises of fun and excitement. Callous. His callous disregard for others' feelings made him unpopular among his peers. Cameo. The famous actress made a cameo appearance in the movie. Campaign. The political campaign was marked by mudslinging and negative ads. Candid. She appreciated his candid feedback, even if it was sometimes hard to hear. Canon. The book was considered a classic and part of the literary canon. Cant. His speech was filled with cant and platitudes, lacking sincerity. Canto. The epic poem was divided into several cantos, each telling a different part of the story. Capitulate. Faced with overwhelming odds, the enemy was forced to capitulate. Caprice. Her mood swings were a result of her caprice, never knowing what she would do next. Capricious. The weather in the mountains was notoriously capricious, changing without warning. Captious. His captious nature made him difficult to please, always finding fault with everything. Cardinal. The cardinal rule of the restaurant was to always treat the customer with respect. Careen. The car careened off the road and crashed into a tree. Carrion. The vultures feasted on the carrion left behind by the lion's kill. Categorical. He gave a categorical denial of the allegations against him. Caucus. The party members met in caucus to discuss their strategy for the upcoming election. Cavalier. His cavalier attitude towards safety regulations put his co-workers at risk. Cede. The country agreed to cede control of the disputed territory to its neighbor. Chaff. He separated the wheat from the chaff, keeping only the best grains for milling. Chagrin. Much to his chagrin, he discovered that he had left his wallet at home. Chamber. The king retired to his private chamber to rest after a long day of meetings. Cherry. She was chary of making any promises she couldn't keep. Chastise. The teacher chastised the student for being late to class. Checkered. His checkered past made it difficult for him to find employment. Chide. She chided him for forgetting their anniversary. Choleric. His choleric temperament often got him into trouble, especially when he was angry. Circumspect. She was circumspect in her dealings with strangers, always cautious. Circumstances. Despite the difficult circumstances, she remained optimistic about the future. Circumvent. They found a way to circumvent the security measures and gain access to the building. Cite. He cited several sources to support his argument. Clad. She was clad in a beautiful gown for the gala event. Clandestine. They conducted their meetings in clandestine locations to avoid detection. Clarion. The clarion call to action rallied the troops to battle. Cleave. He used a cleaver to cleave the meat into smaller pieces. Coast. The car coasted down the hill, gaining speed with each passing moment. Coax. She tried to coax the shy child out of hiding with promises of candy. Codicil. The codicil to his will specified how his assets should be divided among his children. Cogent. His arguments were cogent and persuasive, convincing even the skeptics. Cognate. Spanish and Italian are cognate languages, sharing many similarities in vocabulary and grammar. Cohere. The various elements of the painting cohered to form a cohesive whole. Cohort. She was part of the first cohort of students to graduate from the new program. Coiffure. She spent hours at the salon getting her coiffure just right for the wedding. Collation. The collation of data took several weeks to complete. Commiserate. She commiserated with her friend over the loss of her beloved pet. Commission. The artist received a commission to paint a portrait of the wealthy businessman. Commit. He was committed to achieving his goals, no matter what obstacles stood in his way. Compel. His sense of duty compelled him to help those less fortunate than himself. Comport. She comported herself with grace and dignity throughout the ordeal. Comprehensive. The report provided a comprehensive overview of the company's financial health. Conceit. His conceit prevented him from seeing the truth of the situation. Concept. The concept of democracy has been around for centuries. Concern. Her main concern was the welfare of her family. Concomitant. Increased stress is often a concomitant of a demanding job. Conduct. His conduct during the meeting was unprofessional and disrespectful. Confer. The committee will confer with experts before making a decision. Confluence. The confluence of the two rivers created a beautiful natural spectacle. Congeal. The blood began to congeal into a thick, dark clot. Conjugal. The couple shared a deep and abiding conjugal love for each other. Conjure. He tried to conjure up memories of happier times to ease his sorrow. Connotation. The word home has positive connotations of warmth and security. Conscientious. She was a conscientious student, always completing her assignments on time. Consecrate. The church was consecrated in a solemn ceremony attended by the entire community. Conservatory. She studied music at the conservatory, honing her skills as a pianist. Consider. She promised to consider his proposal carefully before making a decision. Conspicuous. The bright red car was conspicuous among a sea of dull-colored vehicles. Constant. His constant complaints became tiresome after a while. Constituency. The politician's strong support from his constituency ensured his re-election. Constitute. These factors constitute the main causes of climate change. Constrained. She felt constrained by the expectations placed upon her by society. Construe. His silence was construed as agreement by the rest of the group. Contempt. She looked at him with open contempt, unable to hide her disdain. Contend. He had to contend with numerous obstacles on his path to success. Contract. She signed a contract with the publishing company to write her memoir. Contrive. He contrived a clever plan to escape from the prison. Contrived. The ending of the movie felt contrived and unrealistic. Contusion. The contusion on his forehead was evidence of a recent injury. Convalesce. After weeks of bed rest, he finally began to convalesce and regain his strength. Convention. The annual convention attracts thousands of attendees from around the world. Convince. She tried to convince him to change his mind, but he remained steadfast in his decision. Corpulent. The corpulent man struggled to climb the stairs due to his excessive weight. Countermand. The general countermanded the order, preventing a disastrous attack. Court. He courted her with flowers and love letters, hoping to win her heart. Cower. The frightened dog cowered in the corner during the thunderstorm. Coy. She was coy about revealing her true feelings for him. Cousin. He tried to cousin her into giving him more money by spinning a tale of hardship. Crabbed. His crabbed handwriting made it difficult to decipher his notes. Craven. His craven behavior during the battle earned him the scorn of his comrades. Credence. His repeated lies eroded his credibility and credence with others. Credible. The witness seemed credible, with no reason to doubt her testimony. Credo. His credo was to always treat others with kindness and respect. Crevice. The spider crawled into the crevice in the wall, seeking shelter from the rain. Crew. The crew worked tirelessly to repair the damaged ship. Crone. The old crone lived alone in the forest, feared by the villagers. Cryptic. His cryptic message left everyone puzzled and confused. Cupidity. His cupidity led him to engage in shady business dealings to increase his wealth. Dais. The speaker stood on the dais, addressing the assembled crowd. Dapper. He was always impeccably dressed, with a dapper appearance. Dearth. The dearth of affordable housing in the city has become a major problem. Debacle. The company's latest product launch was a debacle, resulting in massive financial losses. Debase. He sought to debase his rival by spreading false rumors about him. Decadence. The decadence of the royal court was evident in its extravagant parties and lavish spending. Declivity. The steep declivity made it difficult to climb to the top of the mountain. Decorum. The formal dinner was conducted with the utmost decorum, with everyone on their best behavior. Decree. The king issued a decree banning all political protests in the capital. Deduce. From the evidence presented, he was able to deduce the identity of the culprit. Deference. He showed great deference to his elders, always listening to their advice. Defray. The company agreed to defray the cost of her medical treatment. Deign. He deigned to speak to the lowly peasants, but only out of necessity. Delicacy. The chef prepared a delicious delicacy that delighted the diners. Delve. She decided to delve deeper into the mystery, determined to uncover the truth. Demonstrable. The theory was not just speculative, it was based on demonstrable evidence. Demoralize. The constant criticism began to demoralize the team, affecting their performance. Denizen. He was a denizen of the city, having lived there his entire life. Denote. The red traffic light denotes that it's time to stop. Denouement. The denouement of the play revealed the true identity of the murderer. Depose. The king was deposed in a coup and forced to flee the country. Depravity. His depravity knew no bounds, leading him to commit unspeakable acts. Deprecate. He deprecated his own achievements, always downplaying his successes. Depredation. The depredation of the forest by logging companies had devastating consequences for the ecosystem. Deride. He derided her efforts as amateurish and inept. Derivative. The movie felt derivative, borrowing heavily from other, more original films. Derive. She derived great satisfaction from helping others in need. Derogate. His rude comments derogated from the overall success of the event. Descry. From his vantage point, he was able to descry the enemy approaching from a distance. Desecrate. The Vandals desecrated the ancient burial ground, destroying priceless artifacts. Desideratum. Happiness is the ultimate desideratum that everyone strives for. Desist. The protesters refused to desist until their demands were met. Desolate. The desert was desolate, with no signs of life for miles around. Despoil. The invaders despoiled the land, leaving destruction in their wake. Despot. The despot ruled with an iron fist, crushing any opposition to his regime. Destitute. After losing his job, he was left destitute and homeless. Desuetude. The old law fell into desuetude and was eventually repealed. Desultory. Their desultory conversation failed to address the real issues at hand. Detain. The police detained him for questioning in connection with the robbery. Deterrent. The threat of punishment serves as a deterrent to would-be criminals. Detest. She detested the taste of Brussels sprouts and refused to eat them. Detract. His bad behavior detracted from the overall success of the event. Deviate. He decided to deviate from the usual route and take a shortcut. Devise. She devised a clever plan to sneak past the guards undetected. Devious. His devious scheme to defraud investors was eventually uncovered. Devoid. The room was devoid of furniture, giving it a barren and empty feel. Devout. She was a devout believer, attending church services regularly. Dexterous. The dexterous surgeon performed the delicate operation with precision and skill. Diadem. The queen wore a glittering diadem on her head for the royal banquet. Dialectic. The dialectic between thesis and antithesis leads to synthesis in Hegelian philosophy. Diametrical. Their opinions were diametrical opposites, with no possibility of reconciliation. Dichotomy. The novel explores the dichotomy between good and evil in human nature. Didactic. The novel's didactic tone detracted from its literary merit. Diffident. He was diffident and shy, always reluctant to speak up in group settings. Diffuse. The perfume diffused throughout the room, leaving a lingering scent. Dilapidated. The old house was dilapidated and in need of extensive repairs. Dilate. The doctor used drops to dilate her pupils during the eye examination. Dilatory. His dilatory tactics delayed the project, much to the frustration of his colleagues. Discern. She strained to discern the distant figure through the fog. Disclaim. He quickly disclaimed any responsibility for the accident. Disclose. She hesitated to disclose the truth, fearing the consequences. Discomfit. His unexpected arrival discomfited her, throwing her off balance. Disconcert. His strange behavior disconcerted her, leaving her feeling uneasy. Disconsolate. The widow was disconsolate after the death of her husband. Discordant. The discordant notes clashed unpleasantly, ruining the performance. Discount. She refused to discount the possibility of reconciliation, despite their differences. Discourse. His discourse on the nature of reality was both profound and enlightening. Discredit. The scandal discredited the politician, tarnishing his reputation irreparably. Discreet. He was discreet about his romantic liaisons, keeping them hidden from public view. Discrepancy. There was a discrepancy between the two reports, causing confusion among the researchers. Discrete. The problem can be broken down into discrete components for easier analysis. Discriminate. It is illegal to discriminate against employees on the basis of race or gender. Discursive. His discursive style of writing made it difficult to follow his train of thought. Disdain. She regarded him with disdain, considering him beneath her notice. Disembark. The passengers waited patiently to disembark from the ship after it docked. Disenfranchise. The new law threatened to disenfranchise thousands of voters, sparking protests across the country. Disengage. He tried to disengage from the argument before it escalated into a full-blown fight. Disgorge. The volcano began to disgorge ash and molten lava, threatening nearby villages. Disgruntled. The disgruntled employee complained about his working conditions to anyone who would listen. Disheveled. His disheveled appearance suggested that he had been up all night worrying. Disingenuous. His apology seemed disingenuous, lacking sincerity or remorse. Disinter. The archaeologists carefully disinterred the ancient artifacts buried beneath the ruins. Disjointed. The disjointed narrative made it difficult to follow the plot of the movie. Dislodge. She tried to dislodge the stubborn cork from the bottle with a corkscrew. Dismantle. They decided to dismantle the old car and sell the parts for scrap metal. Disparage. He disparaged her efforts, claiming they were not good enough. Disparate. The two ideas seemed disparate at first, but upon closer examination, they were connected. Disparity. There was a vast disparity between the wealth of the rich and the poverty of the poor. Dispassionate. She approached the problem with a dispassionate eye, carefully considering all the facts. Dispatch. He dispatched a messenger to deliver the urgent message to the king. Disperse. The crowd began to disperse as the sun started to set. Dispirit. The constant setbacks began to dispirit him, sapping his motivation and energy. Displace. The floodwaters threatened to displace thousands of people from their homes. Dispossess. The new law threatened to dispossess many families of their land and property. Disputation. The disputation between the two scholars lasted for hours, with neither willing to concede defeat. Disquiet. The strange noises coming from the basement filled her with disquiet. Disquisition. His lengthy disquisition on the nature of reality bored his audience to tears. Disrepute. The scandal brought the company into disrepute, damaging its reputation. Disseminate. The organization disseminated information about the dangers of smoking to schools and communities. Dissent. He was arrested for dissenting against the government's policies. Dissident. The dissident group called for political reform and greater freedom of speech. Dissipate. The morning mist gradually dissipated as the sun rose higher in the sky. Dissolution. The dissolution of their marriage was painful for both of them. Dissonance. The dissonance between his words and his actions troubled her deeply. Dissuade. She tried to dissuade him from taking unnecessary risks, but he refused to listen. Distaff. The distaff side of the family has always been known for its strong, independent women. Distend. The balloon began to distend as it filled with air. Distill. The process of distilling whiskey involves heating and cooling the liquid to extract impurities. Distinct. Her voice was distinct, making her easy to identify even in a crowded room. Distinguish. He struggled to distinguish between right and wrong in a world full of moral ambiguity. Distraught. She was distraught at the news of her mother's illness. Diurnal. Many animals are diurnal, meaning they are most active during the day. Diverge. The two roads diverged, forcing him to choose between them. Diverse. The city was a diverse melting pot of cultures and languages. Divest. He decided to divest himself of all his worldly possessions and live a simple life. Divination. The art of divination has been practiced for centuries in many cultures around the world. Divine. The ancient Egyptians believed that the pharaohs were divine beings. Divulge. She refused to divulge the location of the hidden treasure, despite the threats against her. Doctrinaire. He was a doctrinaire conservative, refusing to consider any ideas that challenged his worldview. Doggerel. His poetry was nothing more than doggerel, lacking any real depth or meaning. Dogmatic. She was dogmatic in her beliefs, refusing to consider any other point of view. Doldrums. The economy was stuck in the doldrums, with no signs of recovery in sight. Dolorous. The funeral dirge filled the air with its dolorous melody. Dolt. He was a dolt who couldn't tell the difference between left and right. Domicile. The family moved to a new domicile in the countryside, leaving the city behind. Dominion. The king ruled over his dominion with absolute authority. Don. He decided to don his best suit for the job interview. Dossier. The dossier contained classified information about the spy's activities. Doughty. The doughty knight fought bravely against overwhelming odds. Dour. His dour expression frightened the children, making them reluctant to approach him. Dowager. The Dowager Queen played an important role in advising the young king. Downcast. His downcast eyes and slumped posture suggested that he was feeling defeated. Draconian. The draconian laws imposed by the dictator severely limited the freedoms of the people. Drivel. His drunken drivel was amusing at first, but soon became tiresome. Droll. His droll sense of humor never failed to elicit laughter from his friends. Dubious. She was dubious about his claims of innocence, suspecting that he was lying. Dulcet. The dulcet tones of the violin filled the concert hall with music. Dupe. He was a dupe who fell for the con artist's lies. Duplicity. His duplicity knew no bounds, as he lied and cheated his way to the top. Duress. She signed the confession under duress, fearing for her life. Earnest. He was earnest in his desire to help others, devoting himself to charitable causes. Ebullient. She was ebullient with joy upon hearing the news of her promotion. Eccentric. His eccentric behavior made him the talk of the town. Eclectic. Her taste in music was eclectic, spanning many different genres and styles. Eclipse. The solar eclipse plunged the city into darkness for several minutes. Edict. The king issued an edict banning all public gatherings in the city. Edifice. The grand edifice of the cathedral dominated the skyline. Efface. The graffiti on the wall was quickly effaced by city workers. Effervescent. Her effervescent personality made her the life of the party. Effigy. The protesters burned an effigy of the dictator in the town square. Effrontery. His effrontery in asking for a raise after only 2 weeks on the job shocked his co-workers. Effulgent. The effulgent glow of the sunset painted the sky in shades of pink and gold. Effusive. She was effusive in her praise of the chef, declaring the meal the best she had ever eaten. Egregious. His egregious errors cost the company millions of dollars in lost revenue. Ejaculate. He ejaculated his approval of the plan, eager to get started on the project. Elation. She felt a sense of elation upon hearing that she had won the lottery. Elegiac. The elegiac poem mourned the loss of a loved one, expressing the poet's grief and sorrow. Illicit. The detective hoped to elicit a confession from the suspect during questioning. Elite. The elite members of society lived in luxury, far removed from the struggles of the common people. Ellipse. The shape of the planet's orbit is an ellipse, with the Sun at one of the foci. Elocution. She took elocution lessons to improve her public speaking skills. Elucidate. The professor tried to elucidate the complex theory to his students, breaking it down into simpler terms. Emaciated. The emaciated dog was taken to the shelter, where it was nursed back to health. Emancipate. The slaves were emancipated after the Civil War, gaining their freedom at last. Embargo. The embargo on trade with the neighboring country hurt the economy. Embark. They decided to embark on a journey around the world, seeking adventure and new experiences. Embarrass. He tried to hide his embarrassment by pretending nothing had happened. Embed. The journalist embedded herself with the troops in order to report on the war from the front lines. Embellish. She embellished the truth, adding details to make her story more interesting. Embezzle. The accountant embezzled millions of dollars from the company over the course of several years. Embolden. His success emboldened him to take even greater risks in the future. Embody. The statue was said to embody the spirit of freedom and democracy. Embroil. The country became embroiled in a bitter civil war that lasted for years. Embrace. He decided to embrace the opportunity to start over in a new city. Embroil. The country became embroiled in a bitter civil war that lasted for years. Emerge. She finally emerged from her self-imposed isolation, ready to face the world again. Eminent. The eminent scientist was awarded the Nobel Prize for his groundbreaking research. Emissary. The ambassador sent an emissary to negotiate a peace treaty with the enemy. Emollient. The emollient cream soothed her dry, irritated skin. Empathy. She felt empathy for the homeless man, knowing what it was like to struggle to survive. Empirical. The theory was based on empirical evidence gathered through careful observation and experimentation. Emulate. He hoped to emulate his father's success in business. Enact. The government enacted new laws to address the growing problem of pollution. Enamor. He became enamored with her beauty the moment he saw her. Encroach. The new construction project began to encroach on the protected wetlands. Encumber. The heavy backpack encumbered her progress up the mountain. Endemic. Malaria is endemic to many tropical regions of the world. Enervate. The intense heat began to enervate them, draining their energy and sapping their strength. Engage. He tried to engage her in conversation, but she seemed uninterested. Engender. His rude comments only served to engender ill will among his co-workers. Enigmatic. The Mona Lisa's enigmatic smile has puzzled art historians for centuries. Enjoin. The judge enjoined the parties from discussing the case with the media. Enmity. There was deep enmity between the two rival gangs, each vying for control of the neighborhood. Ennui. He felt a sense of ennui, as if nothing in life held any interest or excitement for him. Ensconce. She ensconced herself in her favorite chair, prepared to spend the evening reading. Ensnare. The spider ensnared its prey in its web, ready to feast on the unfortunate insect. Enthrall. The magician's performance enthralled the audience, leaving them spellbound. Entity. The corporation was treated as a legal entity, separate from its individual shareholders. Entreat. She entreated him to reconsider his decision, begging him not to leave. Enumerate. She began to enumerate all the reasons why the plan wouldn't work. Enunciate. She made sure to enunciate clearly so that everyone could understand her. Ephemeral. The beauty of the cherry blossoms is ephemeral, lasting only a few short weeks each spring. Epicure. He was an epicure who enjoyed fine dining and exquisite wines. Epigram. The epigram was a witty and succinct expression of a profound truth. Epiphany. He had an epiphany that changed his entire outlook on life. Epitaph. The epitaph on his tombstone read, "Here lies a beloved husband and father." Epithet. The queen was often referred to by the epithet the Virgin Queen. Epitome. He was the epitome of success, with fame, fortune, and adoring fans. Epoch. The discovery marked the beginning of a new epoch in the field of medicine. Equanimity. She faced the crisis with equanimity, refusing to let her emotions get the better of her. Equestrian. She was an accomplished equestrian, winning numerous competitions with her horse. Equine. The equine statue in the town square honored the brave horses that had served in battle. Equitable. The judge made sure to distribute the inheritance in an equitable manner, giving each heir their fair share. Equity. The company's equity had grown steadily over the years, making it one of the most valuable in the industry. Equivocal. His equivocal answer only served to raise more questions about his involvement in the scandal. Erode. The constant pounding of the waves began to erode the rocky coastline. Errant. The errant golf ball landed in the middle of the road, narrowly missing a passing car. Erratic. His erratic behavior made it difficult to predict how he would react in any given situation. Erudite. The professor was erudite, with a deep knowledge of his field of study. Eschew. She decided to eschew all forms of social media, preferring to live her life offline. Esoteric. His knowledge of quantum physics was esoteric, understood only by a select few. Espouse. She decided to espouse the cause of animal rights, dedicating her life to protecting endangered species. Esteem. She was held in high esteem by her colleagues for her professionalism and integrity. Estrange. His long hours at work began to estrange him from his family, leaving him feeling isolated and alone. Ethereal. The ethereal music filled the concert hall with a sense of peace and tranquility. Ethos. The company's ethos emphasized honesty, integrity, and respect for others. Etymology. The study of etymology reveals the fascinating origins of words and phrases. Eulogy. He delivered a moving eulogy at his father's funeral, celebrating his life and legacy. Euphemism. The term revenue enhancement is often used as a euphemism for tax increase. Euphony. The euphony of the birdsong filled the forest with a symphony of sound. Evanescent. The evanescent beauty of the sunset faded all too quickly into darkness. Evict. The landlord threatened to evict them if they didn't pay their rent on time. Evoke. The photograph evoked memories of a happier time, when life was simpler and more carefree. Exacerbate. His harsh words only served to exacerbate an already tense situation. Exacting. The job required an exacting attention to detail, with no room for error. Exalt. She exalted in the success of her children, taking pride in all their accomplishments. Exasperate. His constant complaining began to exasperate his co-workers, who found him difficult to be around. Excavate. The archaeologists began to excavate the ancient ruins, hoping to uncover hidden treasures. Exceed. The company's profits exceeded expectations, leading to record-breaking revenues. Excise. The government decided to excise the controversial clause from the bill in order to secure its passage. Exclaim. She exclaimed with joy when she saw her long-lost friend walking towards her. Excoriate. The film critic excoriated the director's latest movie, calling it a bloated mess. Exculpate. The new evidence served to exculpate the defendant, proving his innocence beyond a shadow of a doubt. Excursive. His excursive writing style made it difficult to follow his train of thought. Execrate. He execrated the dictator for his brutal and oppressive regime. Execute. The criminal was executed for his heinous crimes against humanity. Exemplary. His exemplary behavior made him a role model for others to emulate. Exemplify. The painting exemplifies the artist's unique style and vision. Exempt. He was exempt from military service due to a medical condition. Exhaustive. The exhaustive search turned up no trace of the missing hiker. Exhilarate. The roller coaster ride exhilarated her, leaving her breathless and excited. Exhort. The coach exhorted his team to give it their all in the final game of the season. Exhume. The body was exhumed and examined by forensic experts in an effort to determine the cause of death. Exigent. The situation was exigent, requiring immediate action to prevent further harm. Exiguous. The exiguous amount of food provided by the relief agency was barely enough to sustain the starving refugees. Exodus. The exodus of refugees from the war-torn country showed no signs of slowing down. Exonerate. The DNA evidence served to exonerate the wrongly convicted man, who had spent years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. Exorbitant. The price of the designer handbag was exorbitant, far beyond what she could afford. Exotic. She fell in love with the exotic beauty of the tropical island, with its white sandy beaches and crystal clear waters. Expansive. His expansive knowledge of world history impressed even the most seasoned scholars. Expatriate. He decided to expatriate to France, seeking a better life in a foreign land. Expedient. The decision to cut corners in order to meet the deadline was expedient, but ultimately short-sighted. Expedite. He expedited the shipping process by paying extra for overnight delivery. Expeditious. The expeditious handling of the paperwork meant that they were able to start construction ahead of schedule. Expend. He expended a great deal of time and effort in preparing for the exam. Expertise. Her expertise in the field of genetics made her the perfect candidate for the job. Expiate. He hoped to expiate his guilt by dedicating himself to charitable work. Explicit. The instructions were explicit, leaving no room for confusion or misunderstanding. Exploit. The company was accused of exploiting its workers by paying them below minimum wage. Exposition. The opening scene served as an exposition, introducing the main characters and setting the stage for the rest of the play. Expound. He began to expound on his theory, explaining it in great detail to anyone who would listen. Expunge. He tried to expunge the memory of his ex-girlfriend from his mind, but found it impossible to forget her completely. Expurgate. The censors demanded that the offensive scenes be expurgated from the film before it could be released to the public. Extant. The manuscript was the only extant copy of the original document, making it an invaluable historical artifact. Extemporaneous. His extemporaneous speech was surprisingly eloquent, considering he hadn't prepared anything in advance. Extenuate. He tried to extenuate his actions by claiming that he had been under a great deal of stress at the time. Extol. He extolled the virtues of hard work and perseverance, urging his students to never give up on their dreams. Extort. The kidnappers tried to extort a ransom from the victim's family in exchange for his safe return. Extract. The dentist had to extract the decayed tooth in order to relieve the patient's pain. Extradite. The fugitive was extradited to the United States to face charges of fraud and embezzlement. Extraneous. The extraneous details only served to distract from the main point of the presentation. Extrapolate. She tried to extrapolate the likely outcome of the experiment based on the data collected so far. Extricate. He managed to extricate himself from the wreckage of the car before it burst into flames. Exuberant. The children were exuberant with excitement on Christmas morning, eager to open their presents. Exude. Her confidence seemed to exude from every pore, making her a natural leader. Exult. He couldn't help but exult in his victory, celebrating with his teammates long into the night. Fabricate. The conspiracy theorist claimed that the government had fabricated evidence to cover up the truth. Facetious. His facetious remarks often got him into trouble, as not everyone appreciated his sense of humor. Facilitate. The new software was designed to facilitate communication between team members working remotely. Faction. The political party was divided into several factions, each vying for control of the government. Fallacious. The argument was based on fallacious reasoning and flawed assumptions. Fallow. The farmer left the field fallow for a year to allow the soil to rest and replenish its nutrients. Falter. His confidence began to falter as he faced the daunting challenge ahead. Fanatic. The religious fanatic believed that only his faith held the key to salvation. Farce. The trial descended into farce as one ridiculous allegation after another was presented. Fastidious. She was known for her fastidious attention to detail, never satisfied until everything was perfect. Fatalistic. His fatalistic outlook on life made him resigned to whatever fate had in store for him. Fathom. Despite her best efforts, she couldn't fathom the reasons behind his sudden disappearance. Fatuous. His fatuous remarks revealed his complete lack of understanding of the situation. Fauna. The biologist studied the local fauna, cataloging the various species of animals that inhabited the area. Feasible. The plan seemed feasible on paper, but implementing it would be much more challenging. Feckless. His feckless behavior often landed him in trouble, as he seemed incapable of taking anything seriously. Fecund. The fertile soil was capable of supporting a wide variety of crops, thanks to its fecundity. Feign. She tried to feign indifference, but her trembling hands betrayed her true feelings. Felicitous. His felicitous choice of words helped to defuse the tension in the room. Fervent. He was a fervent supporter of the cause, willing to do whatever it took to bring about change. Fervid. His fervid speech inspired the crowd to action, igniting a passion for justice in their hearts. Fetid. The fetid smell emanating from the garbage dumpster made her gag. Fetish. His collection of vintage cars bordered on fetishistic, with each one lovingly restored to perfection. Fickle. Her fickle nature made it difficult for him to predict her mood from one moment to the next. Fidelity. The dog's fidelity to its owner was unwavering, even in the face of danger. Figment. The monster in the closet turned out to be nothing more than a figment of her imagination. Figurative. The poet often used figurative language to evoke powerful emotions in his readers. Filial. He had a deep filial affection for his aging parents, caring for them in their old age. Filibuster. The senator launched into a lengthy filibuster in an attempt to delay the passage of the controversial bill. Finale. The fireworks display marked the grand finale of the evening's festivities. Finesse. She handled the delicate situation with finesse, avoiding any potential conflict. Finicky. The finicky eater refused to touch anything green on his plate. Finite. The Earth's resources are finite, meaning that we must use them wisely to ensure their sustainability. Firebrand. The activist was known as a firebrand, always stirring up trouble in pursuit of social justice. Fissure. The earthquake caused a deep fissure to open up in the ground, swallowing houses and roads whole. Fitful. His sleep was fitful, plagued by nightmares and restless tossing and turning. Flagrant. The flagrant disregard for the rules earned him a swift expulsion from the tournament. Flair. She had a flair for fashion, always putting together stylish and eye-catching outfits. Flaunt. She couldn't help but flaunt her wealth, showing off her designer clothes and expensive jewelry at every opportunity. Fledgling. The fledgling company struggled to find its footing in the competitive market. Fleet. The fleet of ships set sail for distant shores, their billowing sails catching the wind. Flippant. His flippant attitude towards the serious issue offended many people in the room. Flounder. The company began to flounder in the face of stiff competition from larger rivals. Fluctuate. The price of oil fluctuated wildly in response to geopolitical events and market speculation. Flummox. He was completely flummoxed by the complicated instructions, unable to make heads or tails of them. Flux. The political situation was in a state of flux, with alliances shifting and power struggles playing out behind the scenes. Foible. His inability to say no to his friends was one of his many foibles. Foil. The hero's trusty sidekick often served as a foil to his larger-than-life personality. Foment. The radical group sought to foment unrest and rebellion among the oppressed masses. Foolhardy. His foolhardy attempt to climb the mountain alone nearly cost him his life. Forage. The squirrel began to forage for nuts, storing them away for the long winter ahead. Forbearance. He showed remarkable forbearance in the face of his adversaries' insults, refusing to stoop to their level. Forensic. The forensic scientist examined the evidence, looking for clues that would lead to the identity of the killer. Forestall. She took steps to forestall any potential problems before they could arise. Forlorn. The abandoned puppy looked forlorn, with no one to care for it and nowhere to call home. Formidable. The army faced a formidable opponent on the battlefield, but they refused to back down. Forsake. She vowed never to forsake her principles, no matter what the cost. Fortitude. He faced his illness with remarkable fortitude, refusing to let it defeat him. Fortuitous. The meeting was fortuitous, as it led to the start of a lifelong friendship. Foster. The organization worked tirelessly to foster a sense of community among its members. Fractious. The fractious children refused to sit still for even a moment, causing chaos wherever they went. Fraught. The negotiations were fraught with tension, as both sides refused to compromise on their demands. Fray. The fabric began to fray at the edges, showing signs of wear and tear. Frenetic. The frenetic pace of the city was both exhilarating and exhausting. Frenzied. The frenzied crowd surged forward, desperate to catch a glimpse of the celebrity. Fret. She fretted over the details of the party, worried that everything wouldn't go according to plan. Frugal. She lived a frugal lifestyle, saving every penny for a rainy day. Fruition. His dream of starting his own business finally came to fruition after years of hard work and dedication. Fulminate. He fulminated against the injustice of the system, calling for radical change. Furtive. He cast furtive glances around the room, hoping no one would notice him. Futile. Their attempts to escape were futile, as they were surrounded on all sides by the enemy. Galvanize. The impassioned speech galvanized the crowd into action, inspiring them to join the cause. Gambit. His bold gambit paid off, catching his opponent off guard and leading to victory. Gamut. The store carried a wide gamut of products, catering to every possible need and desire. Garner. The film garnered critical acclaim and numerous awards, cementing its place in cinematic history. Garrulous. The garrulous old man could talk for hours about his adventures in the war. Gastronomy. She enrolled in a culinary school to study the art of gastronomy, hoping to become a chef. Gauche. His gauche behavior at the dinner party embarrassed his wife, who was used to more refined company. Genesis. The genesis of the project can be traced back to a chance meeting between two scientists at a conference. Genial. His genial manner put everyone at ease, making him a favorite among his co-workers. Genre. She was a prolific writer, publishing books in a variety of genres, from romance to science fiction. Germane. The information was not germane to the discussion and was therefore ignored. Germinate. The seeds began to germinate, sending out tiny shoots that would one day grow into mature plants. Gesticulate. He gesticulated wildly as he tried to explain his point of view to the skeptical audience. Ghastly. The ghastly sight of the accident left her shaken and horrified. Jibe. His constant jibes and insults eventually wore down even the most resilient of his opponents. Glib. His glib tongue often got him into trouble, as he had a tendency to say whatever came to mind without thinking. Glower. She glowered at him from across the room, her eyes flashing with anger. Goad. He goaded his teammates into giving it their all, refusing to let them give up without a fight. Of course. Here are some more sentences. Gossamer. The delicate gossamer wings of the butterfly shimmered in the sunlight. Grandeur. The grandeur of the ancient palace took her breath away as she stepped inside. Grandiose. His grandiose plans for the future included building a mansion and traveling the world. Gratify. Winning the competition gratified her lifelong dream of being recognized for her talent. Gratuitous. The gratuitous violence in the movie shocked many viewers, who found it unnecessary and disturbing. Gravity. The gravity of the situation became apparent when they realized they were lost in the wilderness with no way to call for help. Gregarious. His gregarious nature made him the life of the party, always surrounded by friends and admirers. Grievance. She filed a formal grievance with her employer after being passed over for a promotion yet again. Grimace. He tried to hide his disappointment with a forced smile, but his grimace gave him away. Grueling. The grueling marathon tested her endurance to the limit, but she refused to give up. Guile. His reputation for guile and cunning made him a formidable opponent in the world of politics. Guise. The thief disguised himself in a clever guise, allowing him to move through the crowd unnoticed. Gusto. He attacked the buffet with gusto, sampling everything on offer with enthusiasm. Hackneyed. His speech was filled with hackneyed phrases and clichés, making it difficult to take him seriously. Haggle. They spent hours haggling over the price of the car, trying to get the best deal possible. Halcyon. The halcyon days of their youth seemed like a distant memory now, overshadowed by the trials and tribulations of adulthood. Hale. Despite his advanced age, he remained hale and hearty, enjoying an active lifestyle well into his golden years. Hallmark. Attention to detail was a hallmark of her work, ensuring that every project was completed to perfection. Hallowed. The hallowed halls of the university were filled with the echoes of generations of scholars who had come before. Hamper. The heavy rain hampered their progress, slowing them down as they trudged through the mud. Hapless. The hapless victim of the prank could do nothing but stand there in shock as his friends laughed at him. Harangue. The politician delivered a fiery harangue against government corruption, calling for immediate action to root out the guilty parties. Harass. She filed a complaint against her co-worker for harassing her with constant unwanted advances. Harbinger. The sudden drop in temperature was a harbinger of the approaching winter, signaling the end of fall. Hardy. The hardy mountain climbers braved the elements, determined to reach the summit no matter what obstacles lay in their path. Haughty. Her haughty demeanor and disdainful expression made it clear that she considered herself superior to everyone else in the room. Havoc. The hurricane wreaked havoc on the coastal town, leaving destruction and devastation in its wake. Hearsay. The rumors were nothing more than hearsay, with no evidence to support them. Heinous. The heinous crime shocked the entire community, leaving them reeling with disbelief. Herculean. The Herculean effort required to complete the project on time seemed insurmountable at first, but they refused to give up. Heretic. Galileo was branded a heretic by the Church for daring to suggest that the Earth revolved around the Sun. Hermetic. The hermetic seal on the container ensured that its contents remained fresh and uncontaminated. Hiatus. The band announced that they were going on hiatus, leaving their fans disappointed but hopeful for their eventual return. Hidebound. His hidebound adherence to tradition made him resistant to any suggestion of change. Hinder. The thick underbrush hindered their progress through the forest, slowing them down considerably. Hinterland. The small town was located in the hinterland, far removed from the hustle and bustle of city life. Hoard. The miser hoarded his wealth, refusing to spend even a penny of it on himself or others. Homage. The museum was built as an homage to the great artists of the past, showcasing their work for future generations to appreciate. Homely. The homely cottage nestled in the woods was the perfect retreat from the stresses of city life. Homily. The priest delivered a homily on the virtues of kindness and compassion, urging his congregation to treat others with love and respect. Hone. He honed his skills through years of practice and dedication, becoming a master of his craft. Horde. The horde of tourists descended upon the small town, overwhelming its streets and shops. Hubris. His hubris led to his downfall, as he believed himself to be invincible and above the rules that governed ordinary mortals. Humdrum. Their humdrum existence was shaken up when they won the lottery, suddenly finding themselves with more money than they knew what to do with. Husbandry. Good husbandry practices are essential for maintaining the health and productivity of the farm. Hybrid. The hybrid car combined the best features of gas-powered and electric vehicles, offering superior fuel efficiency and reduced emissions. Hyperbole. Her description of the party as the best night of her life was clearly hyperbole, as it was just a small gathering of friends. Hypocrisy. His hypocrisy knew no bounds, as he preached honesty and integrity while engaging in shady business practices behind closed doors. Iconoclast. The artist was considered an iconoclast for his unconventional approach to painting, challenging traditional notions of beauty and art. Ideology. His ideology shaped every aspect of his life, guiding his beliefs, values, and actions. Idiosyncrasy. His habit of tapping his foot incessantly was just one of his many idiosyncrasies that amused and annoyed his friends in equal measure. Ignominious. His ignominious defeat in the final round of the competition was a bitter blow to his pride. Illicit. The drug lord ran an illicit operation from his mansion, smuggling drugs into the country and evading law enforcement at every turn. Illuminate. The lanterns illuminated the path through the dark forest, casting eerie shadows on the trees. Illusory. The promise of easy money turned out to be illusory, leading many people into financial ruin. Imbibe. He liked to imbibe a glass of wine with dinner, believing it helped aid digestion and relax after a long day. Imbroglio. The political imbroglio threatened to destabilize the entire region, with no easy solution in sight. Imminent. The storm clouds on the horizon were a sign that a thunderstorm was imminent, prompting them to seek shelter. Immutable. The laws of physics are immutable, governing the behavior of matter and energy throughout the universe. Impasse. The negotiations reached an impasse when neither side was willing to compromise on their demands. Impeccable. Her taste in fashion was impeccable, with every outfit perfectly coordinated from head to toe. Impecunious. The impecunious artist struggled to make ends meet, relying on the generosity of friends to pay his bills. Impediment. His stutter was a constant impediment to clear communication, making it difficult for others to understand him. Impel. His love for her impelled him to take drastic action, risking everything to win her heart. Impending. The impending deadline loomed over them like a dark cloud, reminding them that they still had much work to do. Impenitent. The impenitent criminal showed no remorse for his actions, even when faced with the consequences. Imperative. It was imperative that they finish the project on time, as failure was not an option. Imperious. Her imperious manner made it clear that she was used to being obeyed without question. Impertinent. His impertinent remarks offended everyone in the room, earning him a stern rebuke from the teacher. Impervious. The thick armor was impervious to the enemy's arrows, protecting the knight from harm. Impetuous. His impetuous decision to quit his job and travel the world was met with skepticism from his friends and family. Implacable. The enemy was implacable in their hostility, refusing to negotiate or compromise in any way. Implement. They worked together to implement the new system, streamlining their workflow and increasing efficiency. Implicate. His fingerprints on the murder weapon implicated him in the crime, leading to his arrest and eventual conviction. Implicit. The agreement was implicit rather than explicit, based on a mutual understanding rather than formal written contracts. Implode. The pressure inside the balloon caused it to implode, collapsing in on itself with a loud bang. Implore. She implored him to reconsider his decision, begging him not to leave her alone. Importune. The salesman importuned them to buy his products, refusing to take no for an answer. Impromptu. The impromptu concert in the park attracted a large crowd of spectators, who were delighted by the spontaneous performance. Impudent. His impudent behavior towards his superiors earned him a reputation as a troublemaker. Impunity. He committed countless crimes with impunity, knowing that he would never be caught or punished for his actions. Impute. She imputed his success to luck rather than skill, refusing to acknowledge his hard work and dedication. Inane. The conversation was filled with inane chatter about the weather and other trivial topics. Inchoate. His ideas were still inchoate, lacking clear direction or focus at this early stage of development. Incipient. The incipient rebellion threatened to overthrow the oppressive regime, sparking hope for a better future among the oppressed masses. Incisive. Her incisive analysis of the problem quickly identified the root cause, allowing them to implement a solution without delay. Inclement. The inclement weather forced them to cancel their outdoor plans and stay indoors instead. Incognito. She traveled incognito to avoid being recognized by the paparazzi, wearing dark sunglasses and a baseball cap to conceal her identity. Inculcate. The teacher sought to inculcate a love of learning in her students, inspiring them to pursue knowledge for its own sake. Incumbent. The incumbent president faced stiff competition from his opponent in the upcoming election. Indefatigable. The indefatigable activist tirelessly campaigned for social justice, never wavering in her commitment to the cause. Indemnify. The insurance policy indemnified them against any losses or damages resulting from accidents or unforeseen events. Indict. The grand jury chose to indict the suspect on charges of murder, based on the evidence presented to them. Indigenous. The indigenous people of the region had lived there for centuries, long before the arrival of European settlers. Indigent. The indigent families relied on food banks and charity organizations to survive, struggling to make ends meet on a daily basis. Indignation. His actions provoked widespread indignation among the public, who demanded justice for the victims of his crimes. Indiscriminate. The indiscriminate use of pesticides poisoned the soil and water, harming not only pests but also beneficial insects and animals. Indolent. His indolent lifestyle left him with little motivation to do anything productive, content to spend his days lounging around the house. Indulgent. She was indulgent towards her grandchildren, showering them with gifts and treats whenever they visited. Ineffable. The beauty of the sunset was ineffable, leaving them speechless in awe of the natural world. Inexorable. The inexorable march of time waits for no one, relentlessly moving forward without pause. Infamous. The infamous criminal was known for his ruthless deeds, striking fear into the hearts of all who crossed his path. Infer. From his actions and demeanor, she inferred that he was hiding something from her. Infidel. The religious extremist saw anyone who did not share his beliefs as an infidel, worthy only of death and damnation. Infiltrate. The spy was tasked with infiltrating the enemy's ranks and gathering intelligence on their activities. Infirmity. Despite her physical infirmity, she refused to let it hold her back from living life to the fullest. Infraction. The minor infraction earned him a stern warning from the teacher, who reminded him of the classroom rules. Influx. The sudden influx of tourists transformed the sleepy town into a bustling hub of activity. Infraction. The minor infraction earned him a stern warning from the teacher, who reminded him of the classroom rules. Influx. The sudden influx of tourists transformed the sleepy town into a bustling hub of activity. Ingratiate. He tried to ingratiate himself with his boss by constantly complimenting her and offering to help with extra tasks. Inherent. The risks were inherent in the job, but he accepted them willingly in exchange for the excitement and adventure it provided. Inhibit. Fear of failure can inhibit creativity and innovation, preventing people from taking risks and trying new things. Inimitable. Her unique sense of style was inimitable, setting her apart from the crowd and making her a trendsetter in the fashion world. Injunction. The court issued an injunction preventing the company from releasing the product until further notice. Innate. Her innate talent for music was evident from a young age, as she could play complex pieces on the piano without any formal training. Innocuous. His innocuous comment was meant to be a joke, but it inadvertently offended several people in the room. Innuendo. His suggestive innuendo made her uncomfortable, hinting at things he had no right to discuss in polite company. Inordinate. The amount of time he spent playing video games was inordinate, neglecting his responsibilities and relationships in favor of virtual worlds. Insatiable. His thirst for knowledge was insatiable, driving him to constantly seek out new experiences and information. Insidious. The insidious spread of misinformation threatened to undermine trust in the media and democratic institutions. Insinuate. She insinuated herself into their group of friends, gradually becoming an integral part of their social circle. Insolent. His insolent behavior towards his teachers earned him detention and a stern lecture on respect. Insouciant. Her insouciant attitude towards her studies worried her parents, who feared she wasn't taking her education seriously enough. Instigate. The agent provocateur was accused of instigating violence at the protest, deliberately stirring up trouble to further their own agenda. Insular. The insular community was wary of outsiders, preferring to keep to themselves and maintain their traditional way of life. Insuperable. The challenges they faced seemed insuperable at first, but they refused to give up hope and eventually found a way to overcome them. Intangible. The benefits of the program were intangible, difficult to measure but nonetheless valuable to those who participated. Integral. The role of volunteers was integral to the success of the event, providing much-needed support and assistance behind the scenes. Integrate. The new students struggled to integrate into their new school, feeling like outsiders in a close-knit community. Integrity. His integrity and honesty earned him the trust and respect of everyone who knew him. Intellect. Her keen intellect and insatiable curiosity made her a formidable opponent in any debate. Intercede. She interceded on behalf of her friend, pleading with the teacher to reconsider his decision to fail her. Interminable. The meeting seemed interminable, dragging on for hours with no end in sight. Intermittent. The intermittent rain showers made it difficult to plan outdoor activities, as the weather could change at a moment's notice. Intimate. The couple shared an intimate moment, holding hands and whispering secrets to each other. Intimidate. His imposing size and aggressive demeanor intimidated those around him, making them reluctant to speak up or challenge him. Intractable. The problem proved to be intractable, resisting all attempts at finding a solution. Intrinsic. The intrinsic value of the painting lay not in its monetary worth but in its beauty and emotional resonance. Introspection. He spent hours in quiet introspection, reflecting on his past mistakes and contemplating his future goals. Inundate. The floodwaters inundated the town, submerging houses and businesses under several feet of water. Inure. Years of exposure to violence and hardship had inured him to suffering, leaving him emotionally numb and detached. Invective. His invective-laden tirade shocked everyone in the room, revealing a side of him they had never seen before. Inveigh. She inveighed against the injustices of the world, speaking out passionately against inequality and oppression. Inveigle. The con artist inveigled his way into her trust, convincing her to invest her life savings in his latest scheme. Inveterate. He was an inveterate gambler, unable to resist the thrill of risking everything on a roll of the dice. Invidious. The invidious comparison between her and her more successful sister left her feeling inadequate and resentful. Invincible. He felt invincible when he was behind the wheel of his sports car, racing down the highway at breakneck speeds. Invoke. She invoked the name of her ancestors, calling upon their spirits to guide and protect her in times of trouble. Irascible. His irascible temper made him difficult to work with, as he would fly into a rage at the slightest provocation. Irate. The irate customer demanded to speak to the manager, furious about the poor service she had received. Ironic. It was ironic that the firefighter's house burned down while he was out saving other people's homes from the flames. Irrevocable. The decision was irrevocable, with no possibility of changing their minds once it was made. Itinerant. The itinerant preacher traveled from town to town, spreading the word of God to all who would listen. Jaundiced. Her jaundiced view of the world colored her interactions with others, making her suspicious and distrustful of everyone she met. Jettison. They jettisoned the excess weight to lighten the load and increase the chances of reaching their destination safely. Jingoism. The politicians' jingoistic rhetoric appealed to nationalist sentiments, painting foreigners as the enemy and rallying support for his aggressive policies. Jocose. His jocose nature made him the life of the party, always ready with a joke or a funny story to tell. Judicious. His judicious use of resources ensured that they had enough food and water to last the entire journey. Juncture. At this critical juncture in their relationship, they needed to decide whether to commit to each other or go their separate ways. Jurisdiction. The case fell under the jurisdiction of the federal court, as it involved violations of interstate commerce laws. Juxtapose. The artist juxtaposed images of wealth and poverty to highlight the stark contrasts in society. Keen. Her keen intellect and sharp wit made her a formidable opponent in any debate. Kudos. She received kudos from her boss for a job well done, earning praise and recognition for her hard work. Labyrinth. The maze was a complex labyrinth of twisting passages and dead ends, challenging even the most experienced puzzle solvers. Laconic. His laconic replies gave nothing away, leaving them guessing about what he was really thinking. Laggard. The laggard employee was always the last one to finish their work, dragging down the productivity of the entire team. Lament. She lamented the loss of her youth, wishing she could turn back the clock and relive those carefree days once more. Lampoon. The satirical cartoon lampooned the politician, mocking his policies and exaggerating his flaws for comedic effect. Languid. The languid pace of life in the countryside was a welcome change from the hustle and bustle of the city. Largesse. The billionaire philanthropist was known for his largesse, donating millions of dollars to charitable causes around the world. Lassitude. The heat drained their energy, leaving them feeling overcome by lassitude and lethargy. Latent. His latent talent for painting emerged when he picked up a brush for the first time, surprising everyone with his skill and creativity. Laudable. Her laudable efforts to improve the community earned her the admiration and respect of her neighbors. Lavish. The hotel spared no expense in creating a lavish banquet for its guests, with gourmet food and fine wines served on silver platters. Lax. The lax security measures left the building vulnerable to break-ins and theft. Lecherous. The lecherous old man made inappropriate comments and advances towards the young waitress, making her feel uncomfortable and unsafe. Legacy. His greatest legacy was the impact he had on the lives of others, inspiring them to strive for greatness and never give up on their dreams. Lethal. The venom of the snake was lethal, capable of killing a human with just one bite. Levity. His attempts to inject levity into the meeting fell flat, as everyone else was too focused on the seriousness of the situation to appreciate his jokes. Liaison. The diplomat served as a liaison between the two warring factions, trying to broker a peace agreement that would satisfy both sides. Libel. The newspaper was sued for libel after publishing false and defamatory statements about a local businessman. Libertine. The libertine lifestyle of the aristocracy scandalized polite society, with tales of debauchery and excess spreading like wildfire. Licentious. The licentious behavior of the nobility shocked and outraged the common people, who viewed their moral depravity with disdain. Limpid. The limpid waters of the lake were crystal clear, allowing them to see all the way to the bottom. Lineage. He could trace his lineage back to the Mayflower, with ancestors who had been among the first settlers in America. Litany. The litany of complaints and grievances grew longer with each passing day, as they struggled to find solutions to their problems. Lithe. The lithe dancer moved across the stage with grace and agility, captivating the audience with her elegant movements. Loathe. She loathed the taste of Brussels sprouts, refusing to eat them no matter how they were prepared. Loquacious. His loquacious nature made him a popular conversationalist, always ready with a witty remark or an interesting anecdote to share. Lucid. Despite his advanced age, his mind remained remarkably lucid, with no signs of senility or dementia. Lucrative. The lucrative business opportunity promised to make them rich beyond their wildest dreams. Ludicrous. The idea of traveling to the moon seemed ludicrous at first, but with advances in technology, it became a reality. Lugubrious. The lugubrious music set the mood for the funeral, evoking feelings of sadness and mourning in all who attended. Lull. The calm before the storm was a brief lull in the chaos, providing them with a moment of respite before the battle resumed. Luminary. The scientist was a luminary in his field, with numerous groundbreaking discoveries to his name. Lurid. The lurid details of the crime shocked and horrified the public, who followed the case with morbid fascination. Lush. The lush vegetation of the rainforest was teeming with life, from colorful birds to exotic flowers and plants. Machination. The villain's machinations threatened to plunge the kingdom into chaos, as he plotted to seize power for himself. Magnanimous. Despite their bitter rivalry, he was magnanimous in victory, offering his opponent a handshake and words of praise. Magnate. The business magnate controlled vast wealth and influence, shaping the economic landscape of the entire country. Maladroit. His maladroit handling of the situation only made matters worse, causing confusion and frustration among his colleagues. Malaise. A sense of malaise hung over the city, with residents feeling disheartened by the economic downturn and political unrest. Malfeasance. The politician was accused of malfeasance, using his position of power for personal gain and betraying the public's trust. Malinger. He tried to malinger his way out of work by feigning illness, but his boss was not fooled by his excuses. Malleable. The young minds of children are highly malleable, shaped by their experiences and influences as they grow and learn. Mandate. The voters gave him a clear mandate to implement his policies, electing him by a landslide in the recent election. Manifesto. The Revolutionaries' Manifesto called for radical changes to the political system, advocating for equality and justice for all citizens. Maudlin. Her maudlin display of emotion made everyone uncomfortable, as she wept uncontrollably over a minor setback. Maxim. His favorite maxim was "Fortune favors the bold," a motto that inspired him to take risks and seize opportunities whenever they arose. Meander. The river meandered through the countryside, twisting and turning, as it made its way towards the sea. Mediocrity. He refused to settle for mediocrity, always striving for excellence in everything he did. Meek. She was meek and submissive, always deferring to others and never standing up for herself. Melancholy. A feeling of melancholy settled over him as he watched the sun set, thinking about the passage of time and the inevitability of change. Melee. The crowded bar erupted into a melee as fists flew and bottles smashed, with patrons scrambling to escape the violence. Mellifluous. His voice was mellifluous, with a smooth and pleasing tone that captivated audiences wherever he went. Mendacious. The politician's mendacious claims were quickly debunked by fact-checkers, exposing him as a liar and a fraud. Mentor. He served as a mentor to the younger members of the team, offering guidance and support as they navigated their careers. Mercenary. The mercenary was hired to carry out the assassination, motivated solely by the promise of a hefty paycheck. Mercurial. Her mercurial temperament made it difficult to predict her moods, as she could go from laughter to tears in a matter of seconds. Merge. The two companies decided to merge their operations, combining their resources and expertise to create a stronger, more competitive entity. Mesmerize. The magician mesmerized the audience with his dazzling tricks and illusions, holding them spellbound until the very end of the show. Metaphor. The use of metaphor added depth and richness to her poetry, allowing readers to see the world in new and unexpected ways. Meticulous. She was meticulous in her attention to detail, leaving nothing to chance and ensuring that everything was perfect. Mettle. His true mettle was tested in the face of adversity, revealing his strength of character and resilience. Miasma. The miasma of pollution hung over the city, choking the air and causing respiratory problems for its inhabitants. Microcosm. The small town was a microcosm of society at large, with all the same joys, sorrows, and conflicts found in larger communities. Milieu. He felt out of place in the upscale milieu of the country club, where everyone seemed to be more concerned with status and wealth than genuine human connection. Mimicry. His talent for mimicry earned him laughs and applause from the audience, as he effortlessly imitated the voices and mannerisms of famous celebrities. Minuscule. The chances of success were minuscule, but they refused to give up hope and continued to fight against all odds. Mitigate. The new regulations were intended to mitigate the effects of climate change, reducing carbon emissions and promoting renewable energy sources. Mnemonic. She used a mnemonic device to remember the order of the planets in the solar system, creating a catchy phrase that helped her recall the information whenever she needed it. Mode. The latest fashion mode was minimalist chic, with clean lines and neutral colors dominating the runways and designer collections. Modicum. He had only a modicum of talent as an artist, but with hard work and determination, he managed to turn it into a successful career. Mollify. He tried to mollify her anger with flowers and chocolates, hoping to smooth things over and make amends for his mistake. Momentous. The discovery of a cure for cancer would be a momentous achievement, changing the course of medical history and saving millions of lives. Monolithic. The monolithic skyscraper dominated the skyline, casting a shadow over the surrounding buildings. Monologue. His long-winded monologue bored everyone in the room, as he rambled on and on without giving anyone else a chance to speak. Monotonous. The repetitive tasks of the job made it monotonous and boring, with little variation from day to day. Moratorium. The government imposed a moratorium on new construction projects in order to reassess their environmental impact. Morbid. Her fascination with true crime documentaries bordered on the morbid, as she was captivated by stories of death and violence. Mordant. His mordant wit could cut through even the thickest veneer of pretension, leaving his targets speechless and exposed. Morose. He sat alone in the corner, wearing a morose expression that seemed to repel any attempts at conversation or companionship. Motif. The recurring motif of birds in the artist's paintings hinted at themes of freedom and transcendence. Motley. The motley crew of adventurers set out on their quest, each one bringing their own unique skills and talents to the table. Mundane. The daily routine of commuting to work and paying bills had become mundane and monotonous, leaving him yearning for something more. Munificent. Her munificent donation to the charity helped to fund vital research and support services for those in need. Myriad. There were a myriad of reasons why the project failed, from poor planning to lack of funding and internal conflicts. Nadir. The company's stock price reached its nadir, plunging to an all-time low and causing panic among investors. Naive. She was naive and trusting, believing the best in everyone and never suspecting that they might have ulterior motives. Narrative. The narrative of the novel was gripping and immersive, drawing readers into a world of intrigue and adventure. Nascent. The nascent technology showed great promise, but it was still in the early stages of development and refinement. Nebulous. His plans for the future were nebulous and vague, lacking concrete goals or timelines for achievement. Nefarious. The nefarious schemes of the criminal mastermind were finally brought to light, exposing his web of deceit and corruption. Negate. The positive effects of the new policy were negated by its unintended consequences, leading to widespread dissatisfaction and backlash. Negligent. The landlord was negligent in maintaining the property, allowing it to fall into disrepair and become a safety hazard for tenants. Nemesis. His greatest nemesis turned out to be his own hubris, as his arrogance led to his downfall in the end. Neophyte. As a neophyte in the world of politics, she had a lot to learn about navigating the complexities of power and influence. Nepotism. The rampant nepotism in the company's hiring practices led to resentment and distrust among employees who felt that promotions were based on favoritism rather than merit. Niche. The boutique catered to a niche market of eco-conscious consumers, offering sustainable products made from organic materials. Nocturnal. The nocturnal creatures emerged from their hiding places under the cover of darkness, prowling the streets in search of food. Nomad. The nomad traveled from place to place, never staying in one location for long as he searched for a sense of belonging. Nominal. She held only a nominal position within the company, with little real power or influence over decision-making. Nostalgia. He felt a pang of nostalgia as he flipped through the pages of his old high school yearbook, reminiscing about the carefree days of his youth. Notorious. The town was notorious for its high crime rate and corrupt officials, earning it a reputation as a dangerous and lawless place. Novice. As a novice chef, she made plenty of mistakes in the kitchen, but with practice and perseverance, she gradually improved her skills. Noxious. The noxious fumes from the factory polluted the air and poisoned the nearby waterways, causing illness and environmental damage. Nuance. The subtle nuance of her performance brought the character to life, adding depth and complexity to the role. Nullify. The contract was nullified by mutual agreement, freeing both parties from their obligations and allowing them to go their separate ways. Nuptial. The nuptial ceremony was a joyous occasion, bringing together friends and family to celebrate the union of two people in love. Obdurate. His obdurate refusal to admit his mistakes only served to alienate him further from those who were trying to help him. Obfuscate. The politician tried to obfuscate the truth with clever rhetoric and half-truths, but his lies were eventually exposed for all to see. Objective. She approached the problem with a clear and objective mind, weighing the evidence carefully before reaching a conclusion. Oblique. His oblique references to the incident left her feeling confused and uncertain about what he was trying to say. Obliterate. The bomb blast was powerful enough to obliterate entire city blocks, reducing buildings to rubble and leaving behind a scene of devastation. Oblivion. The old movie star faded into oblivion as younger, more talented actors took the spotlight. Obscure. The meaning of the ancient text was obscure and difficult to decipher, requiring years of study and scholarship to unlock its secrets. Obsequious. The obsequious waiter fawned over the celebrity diner, showering him with compliments and attentive service in the hopes of receiving a generous tip. Obsolescence. The rapid pace of technological advancement meant that products quickly fell into obsolescence, replaced by newer and more innovative models. Obstinate. His obstinate refusal to compromise made it impossible to reach a mutually satisfactory agreement. Obtrusive. The obtrusive advertising banners cluttered up the website, detracting from the user experience and making it difficult to navigate. Obtuse. His obtuse reasoning left her frustrated and exasperated, as he stubbornly refused to see things from her perspective. Occlude. The clouds occluded the sun, casting a shadow over the landscape and plunging the world into darkness. Occult. The occult practices of the secret society were shrouded in mystery and intrigue, with rituals and ceremonies conducted in utmost secrecy. Odious. His odious behavior made him universally despised, with even his closest friends turning their backs on him in disgust. Odyssey. His journey from poverty to prosperity was a modern-day odyssey, filled with trials and tribulations along the way. Offal. The butcher discarded the offal, keeping only the choice cuts of meat for sale to his customers. Officious. The officious bureaucrat insisted on following every rule and regulation to the letter, even when it served no practical purpose. Ominous. The dark clouds on the horizon were an ominous sign of an approaching storm. Omniscient. The narrator of the story was omniscient, knowing the thoughts and feelings of all the characters and guiding the reader through the narrative with insight and foresight. Omnipotent. The king believed himself to be omnipotent, wielding absolute power and authority over his subjects. Omnivorous. Bears are omnivorous animals, eating a diet that consists of both plant matter and meat. Onerous. The onerous task of cleaning out the attic fell to her, as she was the only one strong enough to lift the heavy boxes and furniture. Opaque. The window was covered with opaque curtains, preventing anyone from seeing inside the room. Opine. She hesitated to opine on the matter, as she was not well informed enough to offer a knowledgeable opinion. Opportune. His arrival could not have been more opportune, as it came just in time to save them from certain disaster. Optimal. The optimal solution to the problem required careful planning and consideration of all available options. Opulent. The opulent mansion was filled with luxurious furnishings and expensive works of art, showcasing the owner's wealth and status. Orator. The politician was a gifted orator, able to sway public opinion with his persuasive speeches and charismatic presence. Ordinance. The city council passed an ordinance banning parking on the street during certain hours to alleviate traffic congestion. Ornate. The ballroom was decorated in an ornate style, with intricate carvings and elaborate chandeliers adorning the walls and ceiling. Orthodox. The orthodox interpretation of the religious text was challenged by scholars who offered alternative readings and perspectives. Oscillate. The pendulum of the grandfather clock oscillated back and forth with hypnotic regularity, marking the passage of time. Ostentatious. Her ostentatious display of wealth and status made her the subject of envy and gossip among her peers. Ostracize. She was ostracized by her classmates after rumors spread about her supposed involvement in the scandal. Outlandish. His outlandish theories about aliens and government conspiracies made him the laughingstock of the scientific community. Outmoded. The outmoded technology was no longer capable of meeting the demands of modern industry, prompting the company to invest in upgrades and improvements. Outwit. The cunning fox was able to outwit the hunters at every turn, eluding capture and escaping into the safety of the forest. Overt. The company's overt attempts to manipulate public opinion were met with skepticism and backlash from consumers. Pacifist. She was a pacifist at heart, believing in nonviolent resistance and peaceful protest as the most effective means of enacting social change. Palpable. The tension in the room was palpable, with everyone on edge and holding their breath in anticipation of what would happen next. Paltry. The amount of money they offered was paltry compared to the value of the goods and services they were requesting. Panacea. There is no panacea for all of society's ills, but education comes close by addressing many underlying issues. Paradigm. The discovery of DNA revolutionized biology, providing a new paradigm for understanding heredity and evolution. Paradox. The paradox of love is that it can bring both joy and pain, happiness and heartbreak, often at the same time. Paragon. She was a paragon of virtue and grace, admired by all who knew her for her kindness and integrity. Paramount. The safety of the passengers was paramount, with the captain refusing to set sail until all necessary precautions had been taken. Paraphrase. He struggled to paraphrase the dense text into simpler language that his students could understand. Parity. The two teams were evenly matched, with neither side gaining a clear advantage or asserting dominance over the other. Parochial. His parochial views on politics and religion made it difficult for him to engage in meaningful conversations with people from different backgrounds. Parody. The parody of the popular song went viral on social media, with millions of views and shares in just a few days. Parsimonious. His parsimonious nature prevented him from enjoying the finer things in life, as he was always hesitant to spend money on anything other than the bare necessities. Partisan. The partisan divide in politics grew wider and more contentious with each passing year, making compromise and cooperation increasingly difficult to achieve. Paternal. His paternal instincts kicked in when he saw the frightened child, prompting him to rush to her aid and protect her from harm. Pathos. The pathos of the situation brought tears to her eyes, as she empathized with the character's struggles and hardships. Patriarch. The patriarch of the family was respected and revered by all, his wisdom and guidance serving as a beacon of strength and stability in uncertain times. Patronize. She refused to patronize businesses that engaged in unethical practices or exploited their workers. Paucity. The paucity of evidence made it difficult to prove his innocence, as there were no witnesses or physical proof to support his alibi. Peccadillo. His minor peccadillos were forgiven and forgotten, as they paled in comparison to his many virtues and good deeds. Pecuniary. The lawsuit sought damages for pecuniary losses incurred as a result of the company's negligence. Pedestrian. The pedestrian pace of the movie failed to hold his interest, as he found the plot predictable and the characters uninteresting. Peerless. Her beauty was peerless, with a radiance that outshone all others and left admirers speechless in her presence. Pejorative. The use of pejorative language to describe certain groups of people is offensive and hurtful, perpetuating harmful stereotypes and prejudices. Penchant. He had a penchant for adventure, always seeking out new experiences and challenges to test his limits. Penitent. The penitent criminal begged for forgiveness, promising to turn his life around and make amends for his past mistakes. Penultimate. The penultimate chapter of the book left readers on the edge of their seats, eagerly anticipating the thrilling conclusion. Perceptive. Her perceptive insights into human nature made her an invaluable asset to the team, as she was able to anticipate their opponents' moves and strategies. Perdition. He feared that his actions had condemned him to eternal perdition, separated from the love and mercy of a forgiving God. Peremptory. The peremptory tone of her voice brooked no argument or dissent, making it clear that her decision was final and non-negotiable. Perennial. The perennial flowers bloomed year after year, their vibrant colors bringing joy to the garden. Perfidious. His perfidious betrayal of his friends and colleagues shocked everyone who had trusted him. Perfunctory. His apology was perfunctory at best, lacking sincerity and genuine remorse. Periphery. The small town was located on the periphery of the city, far removed from the hustle and bustle of urban life. Perpetrate. The criminal was apprehended before he could perpetrate any further acts of violence. Perpetuate. The outdated stereotypes only served to perpetuate harmful prejudices and discrimination. Perquisite. The CEO enjoyed many perquisites of his position, including a generous salary, company car, and private office. Perspicacious. Her perspicacious observations often revealed insights that others had overlooked. Perturb. The unexpected news perturbed him, shaking his confidence and leaving him feeling uncertain about the future. Pervade. The smell of freshly baked bread pervaded the air, enticing passers-by to stop and sample the wares of the bakery. Petulant. His petulant behavior made it difficult to work with him, as he would often sulk and complain when things didn't go his way. Philistine. His Philistine attitude toward art and culture offended those who valued creativity and intellectual pursuits. Phlegmatic. His phlegmatic demeanor remained unchanged even in the face of adversity, his calm and stoic nature serving as a source of strength for those around him. Pied. The pied appearance of the bird's feathers made it stand out from its more monochromatic counterparts. Pilfer. The thief pilfered small items from the store, hoping to go unnoticed amidst the bustling crowd. Pinnacle. Winning the championship was the pinnacle of his athletic career, a moment he would never forget. Piquant. The piquant flavor of the dish left a lingering sensation on her taste buds, a perfect balance of sweet and spicy. Pique. His curiosity was piqued by the mysterious package that arrived on his doorstep, prompting him to investigate its contents. Placate. He tried to placate her anger with a heartfelt apology, hoping to mend their fractured relationship. Plaintive. The plaintive cry of the orphaned child echoed through the empty streets, tugging at the heartstrings of all who heard it. Plaudit. The actor received rave plaudits for his performance, earning him accolades and praise from critics and audiences alike. Plethora. The store boasted a plethora of options, with shelves overflowing with merchandise in every imaginable category. Pliable. The clay was soft and pliable, easily molded into any shape or form the artist desired. Plucky. Despite facing overwhelming odds, the plucky underdog refused to give up, fighting tooth and nail until the very end. Poignant. The poignant story of lost love brought tears to her eyes, as she empathized with the character's struggles and heartbreak. Polarize. The issue of gun control has polarized the nation, with people on both sides of the debate unwilling to compromise their beliefs. Polemic. His polemic against government corruption struck a chord with the public, sparking widespread outrage and calls for reform. Polyglot. He was a polyglot who spoke 6 languages fluently, allowing him to communicate with people from all over the world. Pompous. His pompous attitude and haughty demeanor alienated those around him, who found his arrogance off-putting and insufferable. Ponderous. The ponderous tome was filled with dense, scholarly prose that made it difficult to read. Portent. The sudden appearance of dark clouds on the horizon was a portent of the coming storm. Posthumous. The artist's posthumous fame came too late to bring him any comfort, as he had died in obscurity and poverty. Pragmatic. She took a pragmatic approach to problem solving, focusing on practical solutions rather than theoretical ideals. Prattle. The toddler's constant prattle was endearing to her parents, who cherished every word that came out of her mouth. Precarious. The precarious balance of power in the region threatened to erupt into open conflict at any moment. Precept. The golden rule, treat others as you would like to be treated, is a universal precept found in many cultures and religions. Precipitate. His reckless actions precipitated a crisis, putting the lives of innocent people at risk. Precursor. The discovery of fossilized dinosaur bones was a precursor to the groundbreaking research that followed, revolutionizing our understanding of prehistoric life. Preeminent. She was the preeminent expert in her field, respected and admired by colleagues for her groundbreaking research and innovative ideas. Prevaricate. The politician tried to prevaricate when questioned about his involvement in the scandal, avoiding giving a straight answer. Primeval. The dense, primeval forest seemed untouched by time, its ancient trees standing as silent witnesses to the passage of centuries. Pristine. The pristine beaches were a sight to behold, with crystal clear waters and powdery white sand stretching as far as the eye could see. Prodigious. His prodigious talent for music was evident from a young age, and he quickly rose to fame as a virtuoso pianist. Profligate. His profligate spending habits left him deep in debt, with creditors knocking on his door demanding payment. Profound. The philosopher's insights into the nature of existence were profound, challenging conventional wisdom and sparking intellectual debate. Profusion. The garden was a profusion of color and fragrance, with flowers of every hue blooming in riotous abundance. Progeny. The scientist studied the progeny of the genetically modified plants to determine if they exhibited the desired traits. Prohibitive. The cost of the luxury car was prohibitive, putting it out of reach for all but the wealthiest buyers. Prolific. The prolific author published a new book every year, each one eagerly anticipated by fans and critics alike. Promulgate. The government promulgated new regulations aimed at reducing pollution and protecting the environment. Propinquity. The propinquity of their offices made it easy for them to collaborate on projects and share ideas. Propitious. The propitious alignment of the stars was seen as a sign of good fortune and success to come. Prosaic. His writing style was prosaic and uninspired, lacking the lyrical beauty and emotional depth of more talented authors. Protean. Her protean talent allowed her to excel in a variety of fields, from acting to singing to painting. Protract. The negotiations were protracted and difficult, with neither side willing to compromise on their demands. Provident. His provident nature ensured that he always had enough savings to weather any financial storm that came his way. Provincial. His provincial upbringing left him unprepared for the hustle and bustle of city life, and he struggled to adapt to his new surroundings. Proximate. The proximate cause of the accident was determined to be mechanical failure, rather than human error. Prudent. It would be prudent to invest in a diversified portfolio to minimize risk and maximize potential returns. Puerile. His puerile jokes and immature behavior made him the class clown, but also earned him the disdain of his teachers. Pugnacious. His pugnacious attitude often led to conflicts with his co-workers, as he refused to back down from any challenge or confrontation. Pulchritudinous. Her pulchritudinous appearance drew admiring glances wherever she went, but she was valued for more than just her beauty. Punctilious. He was punctilious about following the rules and regulations, never cutting corners or taking shortcuts. Purloin. The thief attempted to purloin the priceless artifact from the museum, but was apprehended before he could make his escape. Purport. The document purported to reveal the secrets of the ancient civilization, but many doubted its authenticity. Pusillanimous. His pusillanimous behavior in the face of danger earned him the contempt of his comrades, who saw him as a coward. Putative. The putative leader of the group was actually just a figurehead, with little real power or influence. Quaint. The quaint little village was like something out of a storybook, with charming cottages and cobbled streets. Quell. The police used tear gas to quell the rioting crowd and restore order to the streets. Querulous. His querulous complaints about the food and accommodations quickly grew tiresome, irritating his fellow travelers. Quintessential. The film was the quintessential romantic comedy, with all the classic elements that audiences had come to expect from the genre. Quixotic. His quixotic quest to rid the world of poverty and injustice was met with skepticism and disbelief by those who doubted his idealistic vision. Quotidian. The monotony of his quotidian routine was broken only by occasional moments of excitement or adventure. Raconteur. He was a gifted raconteur, spinning tales and anecdotes that kept his audience entertained for hours on end. Rancorous. The rancorous debate between the two politicians degenerated into name-calling and personal attacks. Rapacious. The rapacious landlord raised the rent yet again, squeezing every last penny out of his tenants. Rarefied. The rarefied atmosphere of the exclusive club made it difficult for outsiders to gain entry. Raise. The demolition crew was hired to raise the old building to the ground, clearing the way for new construction. Rebuff. His attempts to make amends were met with a cold rebuff, leaving him feeling hurt and rejected. Recalcitrant. The recalcitrant child refused to obey her parents' instructions, stubbornly insisting on having her own way. Recant. The witness was forced to recant his earlier testimony after being threatened by the defendant's associates. Recidivism. The high rate of recidivism among former inmates highlighted the need for better rehabilitation programs in prisons. Reciprocal. Their relationship was based on mutual respect and reciprocal trust, with each partner supporting and caring for the other. Recluse. The eccentric billionaire was a recluse who rarely left his mansion, preferring the company of his books and inventions to that of other people. Reconnoiter. The scouts were sent ahead to reconnoiter the enemy's position and gather information about their defenses. Rectify. Steps must be taken to rectify the errors made in the report before it is submitted to the Board of Directors. Redress. The victims sought redress for the injustices they had suffered at the hands of the corrupt government officials. Redundant. His speech was filled with redundant phrases and unnecessary repetition, making it difficult to follow his train of thought. Refractory. The refractory nature of the material made it resistant to heat and corrosion, ideal for use in industrial applications. Refute. The scientist presented evidence to refute the theory that had been widely accepted for decades. Regimen. The athlete followed a strict regimen of diet and exercise in preparation for the upcoming competition. Rejuvenate. The spa offered a range of treatments designed to rejuvenate the body and mind, leaving clients feeling refreshed and revitalized. Relinquish. He was forced to relinquish control of the company after a hostile takeover by a rival corporation. Remonstrate. The workers remonstrated with their employer over the unfair working conditions and low wages. Renege. He reneged on his promise to help her move, leaving her to tackle the daunting task alone. Renovate. The old farmhouse was renovated and modernized, transforming it into a comfortable family home. Reparation. The government agreed to pay reparations to the families of the victims of the massacre as a gesture of apology and reconciliation. Repartee. The witty repartee between the two characters added humor and levity to the conversation. Reprieve. The temporary reprieve from the oppressive heat was a welcome relief for the residents of the city. Reproach. She looked at him with reproach in her eyes, hurt by his thoughtless words and actions. Repudiate. The company repudiated the allegations of wrongdoing, insisting that they had always acted with integrity and honesty. Requisite. The successful completion of the project will require the requisite skills and expertise. Rescind. The contract was rescinded after it was discovered that one party had misrepresented their intentions. Resilient. Despite facing numerous setbacks and challenges, she remained resilient and determined to achieve her goals. Resplendent. The bride looked resplendent in her wedding gown, glowing with happiness and anticipation. Restitution. The thief was ordered to pay restitution to his victims as part of his sentence for the crime. Resuscitate. The paramedics worked tirelessly to resuscitate the accident victim, using CPR and defibrillation to restart his heart. Reticent. She was reticent about discussing her personal life with strangers, preferring to keep her thoughts and feelings private. Retrench. In order to cut costs, the company was forced to retrench employees and streamline its operations. Revelry. The streets were filled with revelry and celebration as people gathered to ring in the new year. Revitalize. The city embarked on a project to revitalize its downtown area, attracting new businesses and tourists. Revulsion. She recoiled in revulsion at the sight of the gruesome crime scene, unable to stomach the violence and bloodshed. Rhapsody. The musician poured his heart and soul into the rhapsody, creating a masterpiece that moved audiences to tears. Ribald. His ribald jokes and crude humor offended some people, but others found them uproariously funny. Rife. The city was rife with rumors of corruption and scandal, with allegations of bribery and kickbacks swirling around the mayor's office. Robust. The robust flavor of the wine paired perfectly with the hearty stew, creating a delicious and satisfying meal. Roguish. His roguish charm and rakish grin made him irresistible to women, who couldn't help but be drawn to his magnetic personality. Ruminate. She spent hours ruminating over the events of the day, replaying conversations and analyzing every detail in her mind. Rustic. The rustic cabin nestled in the woods was the perfect getaway for those seeking peace and solitude in nature. Sacrosanct. The privacy of the confessional is considered sacrosanct, with priests bound by oath to keep the secrets of penitence. Sagacious. His sagacious advice was always sought after by friends and colleagues, who valued his wisdom and insight. Salient. The most salient feature of the landscape was the towering mountain peak, visible from miles away. Salubrious. The fresh mountain air and pristine surroundings made it a salubrious location for a wellness retreat. Sanctimonious. His sanctimonious lectures on morality and virtue rang hollow, as his own actions often failed to live up to his high standards. Sanguine. Despite facing numerous setbacks, she remained sanguine about the future, confident that things would eventually improve. Sapient. The sapient old professor had a wealth of knowledge and experience, which he generously shared with his students. Sardonic. His sardonic wit and biting sarcasm made him a feared adversary in debates and arguments. Scathing. The critic's scathing review of the play was a blow to the ego of the cast and crew, who had worked tirelessly to bring the production to life. Schism. The church was torn apart by internal strife and division, resulting in a schism that split the congregation into warring factions. Scintillating. Her scintillating wit and charm made her the life of the party, captivating everyone with her sparkling personality. Scourge. Poverty was the scourge of the city, with thousands of people living in squalor and deprivation. Scrupulous. He was scrupulous about following the rules and regulations, refusing to cut corners or bend the truth. Secular. The country prided itself on its secular government, which was committed to upholding the separation of church and state. Sedition. The revolutionaries' fiery speeches were seen as an act of sedition, inciting rebellion and unrest among the populace. Sedulous. Through sedulous effort and dedication, she climbed the ranks to become one of the top executives in the company. Semblance. The town's annual festival bore little semblance to its origins, having evolved into a commercialized event focused on entertainment rather than tradition. Seminal. His seminal research laid the foundation for future discoveries in the field of quantum physics. Sentient. The sentient robots were programmed to experience emotions and make decisions based on their own thoughts and feelings. Serendipity. Their meeting was a stroke of serendipity, as they stumbled upon each other in a crowded bookstore and instantly felt a connection. Serrated. The serrated edge of the knife made it ideal for slicing through tough cuts of meat. Servile. His servile behavior toward his superiors earned him favor in the workplace, but the respect of his peers. Severance. She received a generous severance package after being laid off from her job, providing some financial security during her job search. Shibboleth. The pronunciation of certain words became a shibboleth, distinguishing between different regional dialects. Shrewd. His shrewd business acumen allowed him to make wise investments and build a successful empire. Simian. The simian features of the ape made it clear that it was closely related to humans. Simper. She tried to hide her disdain with a simper, but her eyes betrayed her true feelings. Sinecure. His job was a sinecure, requiring little effort or responsibility on his part. Singular. His singular focus on his career left little room for hobbies or personal relationships. Sinuous. The sinuous path wound its way through the forest, disappearing into the dense undergrowth. Skulk. The thief skulked in the shadows, waiting for the opportune moment to strike. Slake. The cool drink of water helped to slake her thirst after a long day of hiking. Sleight. With a sleight of hand, the magician made the coin disappear before the audience's eyes. Slovenly. His slovenly appearance and unkempt hair suggested that he had not bothered to groom himself in quite some time. Sobriquet. His sobriquet, the King of Pop, became synonymous with his legendary music career. Solace. In times of grief, she found solace in the company of her friends and family. Solicitous. The solicitous waiter made sure that their every need was attended to throughout the meal. Somnolent. The somnolent hum of the bees and the warm sun lulled her into a state of drowsiness. Sonorous. The sonorous tones of the church bells filled the air, signaling the start of the evening service. Soporific. The soporific effects of the medication quickly sent her into a deep and restful sleep. Sordid. The sordid details of the scandal were revealed in the tabloids, shocking the public with tales of corruption and betrayal. Sovereign. The Queen was the sovereign ruler of the kingdom, with absolute authority over its affairs. Spate. There has been a spate of burglaries in the neighborhood recently, leaving residents feeling uneasy. Specious. His argument was filled with specious reasoning and logical fallacies, making it difficult to take him seriously. Spendthrift. Her spendthrift habits left her perpetually in debt, as she recklessly squandered money on frivolous purchases. Spurious. The spurious claims made by the salesman were quickly debunked by experts in the field. Squalid. The squalid conditions in the overcrowded tenement buildings were a breeding ground for disease and despair. State. The state atmosphere of the courtroom was disrupted by the outburst of the defendant's angry outburst. Stench. The nurse worked quickly to stanch the flow of blood from the wound, applying pressure to the injury. Staunch. He remained staunch in his support for the cause, even in the face of criticism and opposition. Steadfast. She remained steadfast in her beliefs, refusing to compromise her principles for the sake of popularity. Stealthy. The cat moved with stealthy grace, stalking its prey without making a sound. Stentorian. His stentorian voice boomed through the auditorium, commanding the attention of everyone present. Stigma. There is still a stigma attached to mental illness, preventing many people from seeking the help they need. Stigmatize. She refused to stigmatize those who were different from her, believing in the importance of acceptance and tolerance. Stilted. The conversation felt stilted and awkward, as if neither of them knew what to say. Stipulate. The contract stipulated that payment must be made within 30 days of receipt of the invoice. Stoic. Despite facing numerous hardships, he remained stoic and uncomplaining, refusing to let adversity defeat him. Stratagem. The general devised a clever stratagem to outmaneuver the enemy and secure victory on the battlefield. Stratify. The layers of sediment had become stratified over millions of years, forming distinct geological formations. Stricture. The doctor warned him about the stricture in his arteries, advising him to make lifestyle changes to improve his health. Stringent. The company had stringent quality control measures in place to ensure that their products met the highest standards. Strident. Her strident tone of voice grated on his nerves, making it difficult to concentrate on what she was saying. Stultify. The tedious nature of the job began to stultify him, draining him of motivation and enthusiasm. Subjugate. The invading army sought to subjugate the indigenous population, imposing their will through force and intimidation. Sublime. The view from the mountaintop was truly sublime, stretching out in all directions as far as the eye could see. Subterfuge. He resorted to subterfuge and deception to achieve his goals, manipulating others to do his bidding. Succinct. Her succinct summary of the complex issue made it easy for everyone to understand. Succumb. Despite his best efforts to resist temptation, he eventually succumbed to the lure of the chocolate cake. Suffuse. The room was suffused with warm light as the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over everything. Sumptuous. The banquet table was adorned with sumptuous dishes fit for a king, enticing guests with their rich aromas and colorful presentations. Sundry. The shopkeeper offered a variety of sundry goods, from household essentials to quirky knick-knacks. Supercilious. His supercilious attitude and haughty demeanor made him unpopular among his peers. Superfluous. The lengthy introduction contained many superfluous details that could have been omitted without detracting from the main point. Supplant. The new technology threatened to supplant traditional methods of production, leading to concerns about job losses. Surmise. Based on the evidence at hand, she could only surmise what had happened, as the truth remained elusive. Surreptitious. He made a surreptitious glance around the room before slipping the stolen object into his pocket. Surrogate. The surrogate mother agreed to carry the couple's baby to term, helping them fulfill their dream of becoming parents. Sycophant. He surrounded himself with sycophants who flattered and fawned over him, eager to gain his favor. Syncopation. The syncopation of the jazz music added an unexpected twist to the rhythm, giving it a lively and energetic feel. Synonymous. In many cultures, the lotus flower is synonymous with purity, beauty, and spiritual enlightenment. Synthesis. The synthesis of art and technology in his sculptures created a unique and innovative style that captivated audiences around the world. Tacit. Their tacit agreement not to discuss certain topics helped to maintain peace and harmony in their relationship. Taciturn. He was a taciturn man who preferred to listen rather than speak, offering only brief and terse responses when addressed. Tangential. The speaker went off on a tangential tangent, discussing unrelated topics that had little relevance to the main point. Tantamount. His refusal to apologize was tantamount to admitting guilt, as far as she was concerned. Tawdry. The cheap and tawdry decorations gave the party a tacky and unappealing atmosphere. Temerity. He had the temerity to challenge the boss's decision in front of the entire staff, risking his job in the process. Temperate. The temperate climate of the region made it an ideal destination for outdoor activities year-round. Tenacity. Her tenacity and determination in the face of adversity inspired everyone around her to keep fighting for their goals. Tenuous. The connection between the two events was tenuous at best, with little evidence to support the theory. Terse. His terse reply left no room for further discussion, indicating that the conversation was over. Theological. The theological debate over the nature of God and the afterlife has been ongoing for centuries. Timorous. Her timorous nature made her hesitant to speak up in meetings, fearing ridicule or criticism from her colleagues. Tirade. He launched into a tirade against his political opponents, accusing them of corruption and incompetence. Toady. He was known for being a toady, always ingratiating himself with those in positions of power in hopes of advancing his own agenda. Tome. The ancient tome contained a wealth of knowledge about alchemy and mysticism, its pages filled with cryptic symbols and diagrams. Torpid. The torpid pace of the lecture put many students to sleep, struggling to stay awake through the monotony. Tortuous. The tortuous path through the dense forest was difficult to navigate, with obstacles at every turn. Tout. The company hired influencers to tout their products on social media, hoping to boost sales and brand awareness. Tractable. The wild horse proved to be surprisingly tractable, responding well to gentle handling and training. Traduce. The tabloid newspaper sought to traduce the reputation of the celebrity, publishing scandalous stories about their personal life. Transcend. His music had the power to transcend language and culture, touching the hearts of people around the world. Transgress. He was warned not to transgress the boundaries of the nature reserve, but he ignored the signs and ventured into restricted areas. Transient. The transient nature of their relationship made it difficult to form a deep emotional connection. Transmute. The alchemist claimed to possess the secret knowledge to transmute base metals into gold. Trenchant. Her trenchant criticism of the government's policies struck a chord with many voters, who shared her concerns. Trepidation. He felt a sense of trepidation as he approached the haunted house, unsure of what he might encounter inside. Trite. Her speech was filled with trite clichés and tired expressions, failing to impress the audience with any original ideas. Truncate. The professor had to truncate her lecture due to time constraints, skipping over several sections to get to the main points. Tumult. The protest erupted into a tumult of shouting and chanting as demonstrators clashed with police. Turbid. The turbid waters of the river made it difficult to see beneath the surface, obscuring any potential hazards. Tumultuous. Their tumultuous relationship was marked by frequent arguments and passionate reconciliations. Turgid. The turgid prose of the novel made it a chore to read, with long-winded descriptions and convoluted sentences. Tyro. As a tyro in the kitchen, she was still learning the basics of cooking and baking. Ubiquity. The ubiquity of smartphones has revolutionized the way we communicate and access information. Umbrage. She took umbrage at his offhand remark, feeling insulted by his lack of consideration. Unassailable. His argument was unassailable, backed up by indisputable evidence and logic. Unctuous. His unctuous mannerisms and exaggerated flattery made her uncomfortable, sensing insincerity beneath his smooth words. Undulate. The fields of wheat undulated in the breeze, creating mesmerizing waves of movement across the landscape. Unerring. Her unerring instinct for finding the best bargains made her the go-to shopping companion among her friends. Unequivocal. His statement of support was unequivocal, leaving no doubt about where he stood on the issue. Unobtrusive. The security cameras were designed to be unobtrusive, blending into the background without drawing attention. Unpalatable. The news of layoffs was unpalatable to the employees, leaving them anxious about their future at the company. Unpretentious. Despite his wealth, he remained unpretentious, preferring simple pleasures and modest accommodations. Unscrupulous. The unscrupulous businessman would stop at nothing to maximize his profits, even if it meant exploiting others. Unseemly. His behavior at the dinner party was unseemly, as he loudly argued with other guests and insulted the host. Untenable. His argument was untenable, crumbling under the weight of contradictory evidence and logical fallacies. Untoward. The untoward behavior of the unruly guests disrupted the wedding reception, causing chaos and embarrassment. Upbraid. She upbraided her son for his disrespectful behavior, scolding him sternly for his rudeness. Urbane. His urbane charm and sophisticated wit made him a favorite among the social elite. Usurp. The military dictator sought to usurp power from the democratically elected government, staging a coup to seize control. Utilitarian. The utilitarian design of the apartment prioritized functionality over aesthetics, with simple furnishings and practical layouts. Vacuous. Her vacuous expression suggested that she was not paying attention to the conversation, lost in her own thoughts. Vapid. The vapid dialogue in the movie left audiences bored and disinterested, longing for more substance and depth. Variegated. The variegated colors of the autumn leaves painted a beautiful tapestry across the forest floor. Vehement. She was vehement in her opposition to the proposed changes, arguing passionately against them at the town hall meeting. Veneer. Beneath his charming veneer, he hid a dark and manipulative personality. Veracity. The veracity of his claims was called into question when inconsistencies were found in his story. Veritable. The old bookstore was a veritable treasure trove of rare and antique books, offering something for every avid reader. Vernacular. She spoke in the vernacular of the region, using local slang and idioms that were unfamiliar to outsiders. Versatile. The versatile actor could seamlessly transition between comedic and dramatic roles, showcasing his range and talent. Vestige. The crumbling ruins were the only vestige of the ancient civilization that once thrived in the area. Vicarious. Through reading novels, she experienced vicarious adventures in distant lands without ever leaving her home. Vicissitude. The vicissitudes of life brought both joy and sorrow, with unexpected twists and turns shaping their journey. Vigilant. The security guard remained vigilant throughout the night, patrolling the premises to ensure the safety of the building. Vindicate. The new evidence vindicated his innocence, proving that he had been wrongly accused of the crime. Vindictive. Her vindictive nature led her to seek revenge on anyone who crossed her, holding grudges for years. Virtuoso. He was a virtuoso pianist, dazzling audiences with his skill and precision on the keys. Visceral. The visceral reaction to the horror movie was evident in the audience's screams and gasps. Vitiate. The presence of impurities would vitiate the results of the experiment, rendering them unreliable. Vitriolic. His vitriolic criticism of the politician was scathing and relentless, sparing no harsh words in his attack. Vivacious. Her vivacious personality lit up the room, bringing energy and enthusiasm to every gathering. Vociferous. The vociferous protests against the new policy could be heard echoing through the streets, as citizens voiced their discontent. Volatile. The volatile situation in the region made it difficult to predict what would happen next, with tensions escalating rapidly. Voluble. She was known for her voluble nature, always ready to engage in lively conversation on any topic. Voracious. His voracious appetite for knowledge led him to read books on a wide range of subjects, constantly seeking to expand his understanding. Waffle. He tended to waffle when asked direct questions, unable to give a clear and concise answer. Waif. The waif wandered the streets alone, with no home or family to call her own. Waive. She decided to waive her right to a lawyer, choosing to represent herself in court instead. Wanton. The wanton destruction caused by the rioters left a trail of devastation in its wake, with buildings looted and set ablaze. Warble. The birds warbled sweetly in the trees, filling the air with their melodious songs. Warrant. The evidence was sufficient to warrant further investigation into the matter, prompting authorities to take action. Wax. Her excitement began to wax as the concert drew nearer, reaching its peak when the lights dimmed and the music started. Waylay. The highwayman lay in wait, ready to waylay unsuspecting travelers on the lonely road. Wield. He wielded his authority with confidence and authority, commanding the respect of those under his command. Wily. The wily old fox outsmarted the hunters at every turn, using cunning and guile to evade capture. Winsome. Her winsome smile and cheerful demeanor brightened even the gloomiest of days. Wistful. She couldn't help but feel wistful as she looked through old photographs, reminiscing about happier times gone by. Wizened. The wizened old man had a weather-beaten face that spoke of a lifetime of hardships and experiences. Wont. He was wont to take long walks in the park every morning, finding solace in the peaceful surroundings. Wraith. The ghostly wraith of the fallen soldier was said to haunt the battlefield where he had met his untimely end. Wrangle. The siblings continued to wrangle over the inheritance, unable to come to a resolution despite numerous discussions. Wreak. The hurricane wreaked havoc on the coastal town, leaving destruction and devastation in its wake. Wry. His wry sense of humor often caught people off guard, with sarcastic remarks delivered in deadpan seriousness. Yeoman. The yeoman farmer worked tirelessly from dawn till dusk, tending to his crops and livestock with care. Yield. The farmer hoped that his crops would yield a bountiful harvest, providing enough food to sustain his family through the winter. Zealot. The religious zealot preached his beliefs fervently, attempting to convert anyone who would listen to his message. Zenith. At the zenith of his career, he was the most celebrated actor in Hollywood, with adoring fans clamoring for his attention.